On September 8, 1941, German troops of Army Group North captured the town of Schlüsselburg and took control of the source of the Neva River. This meant that all communication between Leningrad and the country by land was cut off. The window to the outside world remained only a small strip of the shore of Lake Ladoga between the Neva and the Finnish troops, whose offensive was stopped, on the line of the old Soviet-Finnish border. The blockade of Leningrad began, which lasted 872 days. In the ring of encirclement remained most of the soldiers of the Leningrad front. This is about 500,000 people in the four armies, as well as the entire population of Leningrad and its suburbs. This is about 3 million more citizens. And the future fate of these people will not be envied. After all, in the order of Army Group North of August 28 it was stated that on the basis of the instructions of the highest leadership it was necessary to encircle Leningrad with a ring as close as possible to the city itself. The demand for surrender should not be made. Any attempt of the population to leave the ring should be suppressed. In the directive of the Chief of Staff of the German Navy from September 22, 1941, the future of the city of Petersburg was defined as follows. The Führer has decided to wipe the city of Leningrad off the face of the earth. After the defeat of Soviet Russia, the further existence of this largest population center is of no interest. It is planned to encircle the city in a tight ring and to raze it to the ground by means of shelling from artillery of all calibers and continuous bombing from the air. If, as a result of the situation in the city, requests for surrender are made, they will be rejected, since the problems connected with the presence of the population in the city and its food supply cannot and must not be solved by us. In this war, fought for the right to exist, we are not interested in preserving even a part of the population. As a result of the actions of the German side by the time of the complete lifting of the blockade ring on January 27, 1944 in Leningrad, only from hunger according to different data died from 600,000 to 1 million people. The besieged city was not ready for a long siege. By the beginning of the blockade in the city there was only a small, ordinary stock of food necessary for peacetime. And already since September 1941 the inhabitants of the city felt a clear shortage of food. Moreover, in early September the Germans bombed food warehouses, where 5,000 tons of sugar and flour were lost. The food situation was becoming threatening, close to catastrophe. Marshal Zhukov after the war recalled that the situation at Leningrad, Stalin at that moment assessed as catastrophic. Once he even used the word hopeless. He said that, apparently, a few more days would pass, and Leningrad would have to be considered lost. The norms of food distribution were constantly reduced, and if in September the inhabitants of the city felt only a clear shortage of food, in November real famine began. First the first cases of fainting in the streets and at work, then the first cases of death from exhaustion, and then the first cases of cannibalism. The famine was no longer an isolated phenomenon. The entire population of Leningrad was beginning to starve. On November 20th, the norms of food were reduced again. From now on the cards of the second category were issued 125 grams of bread, and the cards of the first category 250 grams. The norms of allowance in the army were also reduced. Bread is issued clay-like and with an incomprehensible flavor, and surrogate flour with bran and something else is now issued instead of cereals. The feeling of hunger is hard to bear. Before the new year everyone was waiting for news from the front. But the attempt to break through the blockade ring in fierce, bloody battles failed. The bread ration was not increased. And if before January 1st bread was given out without big queues, after that, when the water supply network froze and there was no water, bakeries worked very badly. Huge bread queues were created. At the beginning of January, surrogate bread was given out. It was bitter, with a touch of mustard duranda. But after a few days, its quality improved noticeably, and the shops began to give out very good bread without any impurities. Later, however, it was said that this was only because there were no substitutes in the city. There was simply nothing to dilute the bread flour. However, who can say that the menu of starving Leningraders was monotonous? For me, for example, it is characterized by an extraordinary variety. In my parents' bedroom there was a mirrored closet. After my mother's death, my father never touched the drawers in this closet. And mother had been treated by homeopaths for many years, and now a large quantity of these sweet medicine balls remained lying in the drawers of the closet. In search of something suitable for food and lighting, I considered these balls as new food resources and began to eat them in small doses. And what unusual and tempting names they had! In the same closet I found some chalks. Gradually I ate them, but I kept one, then I used it to mark the wallpaper in my room by square meters. After all, a new dish was more and more firmly on my menu: wallpaper porridge. I set myself a norm 1 square meter a day. All Leningraders make broths and jellies out of carpenter's glue. Jelly is considered to be one of the most refined and nourishing dishes. Unfortunately, I don't know how to make jelly, but I make broth well, but I have to save carpenter's glue. But wallpaper porridge, which is my own invention, can last for a long time at the rate I set. This product is not worse than others. And if I put 2 or 3 almonds from the previously given me 200 grams in this porridge, it turns out to be a delicacy. After a thorough examination of everything in the apartment, I had a whole suitcase of foodstuffs. There were rawhide belts, wax for waxing the floor, and glycerin from the medicine cabinet, but there was no castor oil. There was also cherry glue, alcohol shoes, a pair of nabobs, carbolin, a barley ritual cake from the grave of a saint brought by me 11 years ago from Pamir. I also had at my disposal a vial of refined mineral oil for lubrication of precise mechanisms. In prospect spines of books, because they are also on good glue. In general, things were not so bad, and no pre-war cook had such rare products to diversify his menu.